segment, I did math today. And I did it because I have been fascinated by an idea for like months and have not just sat down to try to figure out how to do this. I'm going to tell you right now, my mathematics are wrong because I am not good at math and I am not good at rocket science, especially because I've never done any. Not even in school. I was just never a part of that like little subsection. Wasn't particularly interesting to me. I would rather shoot the rockets at something. If I had to do any sort of study, I would study ballistics before I studied the rocket science itself because that's what I like. Hit the thing. I like thing move, hit thing. Very rewarding. To that extent, did I hurt myself? Almost. I got very close. Thankfully, there's like calculators online. But I wanted to understand to some degree how many cookies or how much cookies it would take to shoot a single Qassam rocket. All right. So in Israel or in Palestine, the Qassam rocket, Qassam, is a series of rockets of various weights that are handmade in Palestine and free fire shot into Israel, right? Those are the rockets. They're shot out of tubes. It's almost all completely made like on the ground. They are very sus. They are very sus rockets, okay? And they are shot with what is called rocket candy, which is sugar-based rocket fuel. That's a real thing. Always has been, always will be. October Sky, the film, and the most notable product maybe to ever come out of West Virginia, aside from Marshall and that plane crash, relies on sugar rocket fuel, right? There's a lot of different ways to make it, but really not. It follows a pretty strict base recipe, and then you get a lot out of it through extremely fine tuning. So when you're talking about the sugar, I have found this out. I read this today. It's one of the reasons I was late as I was doing math. The base recipe stays the same, and then the effectiveness of the formula changes by the microgram implement. So when you're talking about sourcing materials and sourcing bulk materials, it's not as necessary to be as highly precise with your measurements as it is when you're actually making the rocket fuel. So when my measurements are going to be approximations, they're still pretty much completely within the ballpark of how much you need to make the rocket, because I do this by kilograms. The difference in between what will make the rocket go a meter further and a meter further back is like 0.00002 fucking micrograms. It's very, very, very small. So if you don't know this became a whole thing. Destiny, and for some reason Lonerbox, I don't know if he's still defending this point. It's a particularly stupid point. Like, Lonerbox, stop. They think that for some reason people are turning cookies into rocket fuel. I've heard this too many times. Can I cite them saying it? No, nor do I care to. I just want to make sure that no one does this anymore because it's fucking hilariously dumb. Now, sugar. Can sugar be turned into rocket fuel? Not only yes, absolutely. It is solid state fuel. That's what it is. It's sugar mixed with potassium nitrate, KNO3, and sugar at a 60-40 roughly ratio. It's also could be 65-35. It ballparks in and around there. Some of the ratio changing. It's the mix in versus the final mixed changes, is from what I understand, because you got to mill everything together. When you get it right, the pure compounds, the mixture doesn't look the same when it's getting ready to burn and have the same amount of parts as it does when it's getting mixed up or something like that. But to be generous at all, I rounded up. Between the 65-35 figure and the 60-40 figure, I chose the 60-40 figure because it's cleaner and it's going to be more in the ballpark of what you need. Anyway, when you're trying to source materials to make something as opposed to just simply shoot it, you want extra because you will have spillage, lost waste, all of that shit. So I did these calculations. So 60-40 potassium nitrate. I think it's nitrate, potassium nitrate. No, potassium nitrate is KNA, right? The potassium nitrate is something that we had to deal with when I was in the Marines because they would make knockover bombs with those. Potassium nitrate has that base bombs as opposed to certain other. They push instead of cut. It's a whole thing with like the difference between It's about impulse. It's a whole thing with explosive technology. Don't ignore me, all right? Rocket candy, as I will continue call this, and that is actually a scientific term for it. Rocket candy has a specific impulse of 115 roughly, and is all over the fucking board. The specific impulse of it, because it can be mixed to any degree, and the less clinical the environment that you're mixing your fuel in, the more all over the place it's going to be, right? So it has a specific impulse that actually ranges from like something like 80 to 140. Specific impulse is like the per amount, how much you can get per second, right? So it's like 115 seconds specific impulse. These are profoundly difficult equations, so I will have gotten stuff wrong in here. I do this mostly as an invitation to check it out, but I think I'm probably in the ballpark. So for this, I also used the smallest Qasem rocket, which is the Qasem 1, which weighs 35 kilograms. The Qasems get bigger from there. So this is the minimum amount I think that would be needed to be smuggled in to fire a single Qasem rocket. Oh, that was like... I'm almost rolling my R's. I'm not quite there. Sorry. So, okay, I'm going to read you my stats that I wrote down. Average thrust of about 40 newtons for that sugar mix. I think I ended up bailing on that, which is 1 kilogram. The amount of force it takes to move 1 kilogram, 1 meter per second. So it's a measurement of force, right? A Qasem 1 rocket weighs 35 kilograms, or has a mass of 35 kilograms. And they fly for 1 to 5, their rocket motor fires for 1 to 5 seconds. So it goes, and then it stops. It's a parabolic trajectory, comes back down, right? So it's about getting to the top of that arc. 1 to 5 seconds, which is a lot of variation. So we're down to 1, okay? And you need to have all of that so the rocket will go far enough to fall far enough, right? So if it only burns for like whatever, 1 second, it might not actually exit the tube, because the early stages of the rocket, when it's the heaviest, it needs the most propulsion it needs the most force to start moving, as opposed to at the end stage of the rocket where it needs literally the least amount of force. So as the rocket lightens, it uses less fuel. It's a whole, that's the difficulties of rocket science. So, they can go up to 6 kilometers, but let's say 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer, ignoring ballistics. I got rid of all of that information. That was my early work, was like how to make it do that, and the calculations are way too high. So part of the requirement force just to get this thing to start moving, 35 kilograms times 9.8, the weight of the Earth. To overcome that is you have to put enough newtons in it to move 343 kilograms, right? Because that's the amount of force you have to overcome to make it go from here to moving away from here. You have to literally put 1 G into it. You have to put it, like, you know what I mean, or 2 G's or whatever the fuck. I don't know how to do that calculation. I'm talking out of my ass at that point. So I used this tool, HTTPS, the satcatalog.com/tools/propellant mass calculator. I looked this up. I lost track of where it was. So I found through researching the Qasem rockets over a bunch of things that the larger Qasem rocket, or the Qasem 1, needs about 3 kilograms of fuel per rocket, because it is, I think, because it's 35 kilograms. So that was part of the calculation that I did. So it needs 3 kilograms of fuel to move a 35 kilogram rocket for 1 to 5 seconds, right? For, like, I think it's just for the 1 second. That's how much the specific impulse requires. This is difficult as shit. And if you are a fucking rocket scientist, double check me. But, like, literally it is rocket science. So when I say I'm not a rocket scientist, I mean it. But I think I got into the ballpark. So ultimately I came up with that the smallest amount of fuel needed to fire one of these things effectively would be 3 kilograms of fuel per rocket at the smallest. Okay. And this is all highly variable within it, because they are not making these in, like, clinical settings. Like these aren't in clean rooms. This isn't like at a mixing and milling facility like you would have in Israel, where you can actually make your fuel to scientific down to the microgram standards. They're making this shit in garages and stuff. So it can be all over the place. There's additional stuff that's added in, but a lot of the extra parts that are added in, stuff like iron oxide and things like that, don't really change the overall weight that much. Of that 3 kilogram of fuel, using our 60 to 40 KNO3 to sugar, specific impulse, 115, that whole thing, 40% of that ratio would be roughly 1.2 grams of pure sugar, not anything else. Anything else will probably foul your motor up, because it has to burn at a specific rate, and it has to be mixed in with the KNO3 perfectly, right? Yeah, Newton's measure force. Literally, Newton's is force. Yes, sorry. I'm trying to be accurate. Newtons are force, right? I know that energy, because I'm stupid, I am confusing energy with force. I wrote all of this down. I should have had everything to fucking put my work in here. And so I looked up the mamul cookie is one of the most common cookies in Palestine. I think I said Pakistan a few times. Palestine. The mamul cookie is 70 grams and contains 1.05 grams of sugar. Assuming you have the technology somehow to get that out so that you can get to the sugar only, you would have to, which is a 1,143 ratio, basically, for the kilograms. You need, sorry, I'm reading my notes and the notes are not following, but they are accurate. So if one mamul cookie is 70 grams, it weighs 70 grams, it contains 1.05 grams of sugar, you need roughly 80 kilograms of cookies to fire one rocket, which is like the average pound of a person. So you need like a person's weight in cookies, right? It's like 160-ish pounds. Yeah, so like literally you're pretty much your average person outside of America, where we're all extra large for whatever reason. That's about 175 pounds. So you need a person's worth of cookies refined down to shoot one of the smallest rockets by my very limited mathematics, but I think I'm probably in the ballpark, because those weights make sense for the amount of energy you would need to send 35 kilograms into the fucking sky very, very far. So that's what I put together. I would assume a pallet wouldn't carry more than like a ton. So 1 ton of cookies would get you how many rockets, you know, like per pallet? I guess if you had a hole, it's not impossible. I will say that. Assuming many assumptions, assuming you can separate the sugar, assuming the sugar can be completely refined into sugar. It has to be sugar with nothing else in it. You can't have little scraps of chocolate and flour and this and that. Otherwise, it's going to fuck shit up. So if you can refine it down to sugar, it's going to take roughly 80 kilograms of cookies per rocket to fire one of the smallest of the Qasim rockets. And I guess this probably extrapolates out. So the Qasim 1 is 35 kilograms, the Qasim 2 is 40, the Qasim 3 is 50, and the Qasim 4 is 40 to 50. All right. They don't vary that much, but that'll pretty much get you right in the ballpark. And these things are made in garages and shit. But I think that's my math. That's the path I followed, because I don't think I heard anybody talk about it like that. Now, if you got raw refined sugar, it would be fine. And apparently the Qasim rockets, from when I was reading up on them, were much more popular in whatever, like the last Intifada or something. Early 2000s is when they were using them most recently. But it is, the sugar fuel is not the most efficient, and it is difficult and dangerous to mix because you are making rocket fuel in your house. And that's pretty much it. It is technically possible, but it's not the reason why Israel is preventing food from coming into Gaza, which, mind you, I'm not like, no, here's the thing. I'm telling you it's technically possible to even like, this is the worst possible way of something being possible. I could not imagine using 150, which, by the way, hold on. Let's see, what was that? So you're giving up 193,142 calories in a starvation area per rocket, which is crazy. Not to ignore the fact as well that you need a lot of energy, a shitload of energy to get these things together, because aside from like milling all of the steel and putting the boxes and stuff together, you'd have to boil down the cookies. The best way I could imagine to separate sugar from cookies would be to hot boil it, right? Literally boil it, and then sift, and then hope like you can figure out a way to crystallize all of the sugar that's in the disintegrated products, which is so much water. So much water in a desert by the sea. Like, it's not literally impossible in the idea of like, you absolutely couldn't possibly ever do it, allowing for variables I cannot find if they're possible. Trying to say, can you remove sugar from a cookie, only brings recipes up for cookies with no sugar. I can't figure out how you would do that. I don't know why anyone would have thought of doing it. But there has to be some sort of crystal exegesis that you can do, if I'm using the word exegesis wrong, from a baked good. But generally, baking things tends to completely change the chemical makeup of everything that's inside of it to some degree. So sugars are usually retrievable to some degree because they're sugars. Like, your body can just get them back out. But you usually have to go through the whole digestive process in order to get sugar out of food. So you'd have to replicate something that is at the scale of the human digestive system in order to get the sugar back out of the cookie, which is crazy difficult. And this, so if you assume all of that's possible, you get one rocket after all of that work for every, what I was saying, for every 80 kilograms, of cookie. And that's assuming a perfect extraction rate with no loss. Because I'm not going to try to fucking see those variables. I'm just rounding up. I'm just giving it to you. So like, that is fucking crazy. Okay. Like, that is fucking madness. There's got to be a better way. And if they already have sugar going in there, or you can just get sugar, just use sugar. So there's no reason. The cookies thing is stupid in every way. Everyone that's ever said that you can get sugar from cookies to make the rocket, or that would be reasonable to do, is like, they're huffing fucking meth, man. Well, I didn't say that you did that. I don't know, man. I don't care if you did or not. I demand I be agreed with at this point, because it's so fucking stupid. Sunday was clowning on this. I just wanted to see what the math would be, because just from a military perspective, and understand, like, there's the time element of this is insane, because just the time to make a custom rocket is the time that you have to set up a lab, right, or a manufacturing area, whatever you want to call it. Labs, manufacturing situation, or manufacturing setups. You have to have welders going. You have to have experts in these fields operating in a single area in order to accomplish all this stuff. The extra addition of taking a highly specific non-ingredient, which is because like a finished cookie is finished, right? So like, it is like usually a packaged thing. I don't know, maybe they're coming in bags, but it's also highly specific. So like, if you see a bunch of cookies going in one direction, that is strange, because that should be getting dispersed, right? But if people are taking all of those in one direction, you can pretty much assume that something's going on. If you take a bunch of sugar, flour, or ingredients in one direction, you always have to do that, because those are ingredients. You have to take a shitload of them into a direction to make them all. But like, literally, to make one small rocket, 80 kilograms of cookies, plus the manufacturing and lab capabilities needed to remove the sugar from the cookie, unless there's a fantastically interesting novel process to do that, just sets you up to get fucking obliterated at such a high level that it's a stupid thing to suggest. It is profoundly dumb. So I don't know necessarily if one of them suggested actually, or whatever, because I know if you argue with anybody in that subsector, they're going to be like, I don't know if, yeah, what did I say? And fucking waffle and waffle and waffle and waffle around. But I will just say, the military expediency of that is fucking absurd. It's the stupidest shit I've ever fucking seen in my life. Like, the fact that people would say it and not just immediately go, skip past the just like, the difficulty of extracting the sugar, which I don't know if that's hard or not, because I don't know if it's even possible. I'm just assuming it is. Like, just literally handing that to you. The fucking sheer amount of cookies, the sheer amount of cookies you would need is insane. The sheer amount of sugar you need to use in a fucking drought area or a famine struck area is crazy too. I mean, it's still what, 1.2 kilograms of sugar per thing. It's a big ass fucking bet. 1.2 kilograms of sugar is like this. That's a lot of fucking sugar, man. A fucking 2-pound bag or some odd. That's like per rocket. While like you're watching some kid starve to death in the fucking corner, you know, or going hungry at all. I'd be fucking in that sugar, like eating it. Not impossible. The sugar specifically sugar rocket, not impossible at all. But to assume, I would just be tickled pink to see somebody doing it. To just make a fucking cookie rocket would be incredible. I can't even think of a confection you would be able to use effectively to accomplish that even. Like, I don't even know what you would be able, like maybe rock candy, because it's literally just sugar and then you can grind it up, but like it's crazy. It's just nuts. Tyler, do you approve of people throwing sugar in their fuel tanks? I think you meant to say. You forgot to account for the power of Allah. Oh, I forgot. It is hummus. I can't remember. I think you're supposed to put salt in the gas tanks because sugar, if I remember correctly, I heard about this. I don't know. I've never done it, but I remember hearing about sugar in gas tanks, and sugar and gas are the same shit basically. I know that sounds crazy, but they are. I guess it'll fuck up the octane, but sugar is a hydrocarbon and gas is a carbohydrate. It's a lipid. And so when gas and sugar mix, it's kind of the same as mixing, you know, oil and sugar. First off, the sugar might just settle. So if you have a gas tank that has a pump that doesn't give a shit, or it has a fuel filter at all and it doesn't like disintegrate into it, it might just settle. I don't know enough. I've heard this taken as fact a bunch. Sugar is extremely valuable. I would never use sugar in combat for anything other than feeding people, because like I know people don't know this, but sugar is extremely valuable, especially like insanely valuable. We don't think about it because we always have it because we're a bunch of fat pigs and we're not in famines. Sugar is insanely valuable in combat zones. Insanely valuable. Sugar and salt worth literally probably at times their weight in gold. Like, to make sugar rockets is crazy for the fact that you're giving up sugar. Like, why? Sugar's pure energy. That's why you can make rockets out of it. I know. It's like, wait, hold on. Yeah, it's pure fucking energy. If you mix it with water and then drink it, you can have a guy go for hours for the day. And it's one of the type of like things that you're going to fucking burn through when you're sweating and running around. Sugar and salt, you fucking run out of. When you have people that are injured and they're fucked up, they get their teeth fucked, something like that. They have to be force fed. Sugar water and salt. If you're feeling like shit, you gotta fucking, if you have people that have been fighting all day, I can't, literally mix up fucking sugar and salt. And if you have not salt, some fucking potassium, mix that together and give it to somebody. They're gonna be like, blah, 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 blah. You know, wake them right the fuck back up. It's e-water. Refined sugar is one of the most insane resources that we have and just ignore. It's crazy. If you went back in time and you showed like your ancestor from 3000 BC, like, I can buy one of these for like next to no time of work. They'd be like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, this is like pure powdered sugar. What the fuck? It's not even in honey? No. You don't have to chew it out of anything? No. That's just pure energy. Yeah. You mix it with bread and make what we call a pastry, right? So you can make bread that gives you more energy than bread should. They're like, what? Yeah. You mix it with stuff, make pastes with it, and it gives you just like literally almost the entirety of the calories that you need per day. kind of a stopgap. You need your other nutritions too, but you can like get through your day just eating like a few tablespoons of this shit because it's pure fucking energy. Nowadays, we're like, sugar. I mean, I guess they could put it in a fucking rocket. That's like, it's psychotic. Slavery was created because of how valuable sugar is. The triangle slave trade, the part that's not slaves and rum is sugar, because that's how valuable sugar is. Sugar is so valuable that in order to avoid it fucking potentially spoiling, they started turning it into liquor. The heat will condense the sugar mixed in the fuel and will destroy the engine. Please don't do what I said. Does it? That's one of those things I can't talk about if I know. I've heard people say that if it mixes with it, it'll be fine. And then I've heard generally that a little bit of salt will do everything that sugar will do better. But also, I've heard that the best thing that you can do is save all of that and just learn how to sabo a fucking vehicle in a better way. Because, there's locking gas tanks, and sometimes it's just hard to get shit in a gas tank. Sugar and silver were the blood of the world for a while. Yeah, it's crazy. Weaponized sugar, people back in the day are like, that's fucking cool. Well, they were probably doing it too. I guarantee you they figured out that you could fucking make sugar rockets to some degree. Or you at least set it on fire and get people with it if you had some. Yeah, it caramelizes and burns and clogs up the motor. Depends a bit on the amount, though. Too much and the motor will not start. Caramel car. Okay, well, there you go. Sugar is useless as a fuel. Does not pack enough of a punch to fuel anything but a hobby project. Well, I mean, you still get some of it. It's not as good as like all of the actual like fuels, which have even more calories in them. But like as far as a person fuel, it is pretty solid. It's pretty fucking solid. We're getting people going. What's the Dr. Disrespect drama? I'm gonna cover that in a second. I actually gotta take a break real quick. And Tyler, literally everything I'm looking at, pure sugar from cooked cookies would require a centrifuge, a power source, and clean water at a minimum to get it out of the sugar cane. So it requires even more energy to extract it once the sugar bonds with the other shit in the cookie. Yeah. Is sugar flammable? Sugar is flammable as fuck. It's actually why learning how to cook with sugar is like one of the most important things of becoming like a patissier is like knowing how, like, if you guys know, you like caramel, right? Caramel. And we get it now from like, whatever. Learning how to cook caramel. I can't ever say it the right because caramel and caramel are maybe different. Learning how to cook caramel and the different levels of caramel is like one of the hardest things to do. And learning how to cook sugar without burning it, because sugar comes in like the powdered form that you're used to, but there's also the thread, the fucking crack or whatever the fuck. So there's a bunch of different temperatures. And sugar has to be pure when you cook with it. It has to be pure the entire time because you put anything in it aside from literally like water and it will foul. It goes crazy. Like it turns into crystals and shit and cracks up and looks crazy. So I like caramel is pure sugar basically in water. But it's very difficult to make. Caramel. Like people from the Middle Ages and before any time pre-1500 had pretty good teeth their whole lives, and they get to 1500 people are literally dying of dental abscesses. Yeah, because everything's trying to get to the sugar because it's good fuel. So you don't turn sugar into fuel till it's inside of you for a while. But bacteria turn it into fuel the second they get to it. They're like, oh, get in. And so they just start eating and shitting and eating. Sugar is my favorite medium. I don't like eating it that much, but I like fucking with it. Whew. Okay, I'm going to take a break real quick. When we get back, we're talking about Dr. Disrespect.
Hope you enjoyed your time on the